In other news, Attorney General Avichai Mandelblit concluding his 6-year term on Sunday and appointed by former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in 2016. Prime Minister Naftali Bennett now sending him off with a massive thanks.
ואין כמעט יום שבו מדינת ישראל לא מאותגרת בשדה המשפט הבינלאומי. האויבים שלנו משתמשים נגדנו בכל כלי אפשרי, גם ברדיפה משפטית וביצירת דה-לגיטימציה בפורומים בינלאומיים. התפקיד שאתה מילאת, אביחי מנדלבליט, בהגנה על מדינת ישראל, על חייליה, על אזרחיה, בזירה הבינלאומית שהיא מערכה של ממש, עוד מימיך כפצר ועד ימים אלה כיועץ משפטי לממשלה, הוא גדול ומשמעותי, ועל כך כולנו חייבים לך תודה גדולה. אני מבקש בשם ממשלת ישראל להודות לך, אביחי, על שנים רבות ומסורות של שירות למען מדינת ישראל. תודה רבה.
The question remains, however, who will be Mandelblit's replacement? The government whittling down the options to the final 3 candidates this week. And here to discuss, former Dean of Law at Haifa University's Faculty of Law, Professor Gad Barzilai. Professor, thanks so much for being with us today. Now, first off, before we get to the candidates themselves, let's talk a little bit about Mandelblit's legacy. How would you describe it?
Well, I think that by and large, it certainly has been a very challenging time, 6 years in which Mr. Mandelblit had to deal with a war in Gaza, which is obviously challenging from an international legal perspective. He had to deal with cases of political corruption, including obviously the files against former Prime Minister Mr. Netanyahu. So it has been a very challenging time to Mr. Mandelblit, and I think that by and large he has done a fairly good job. Some would accuse him in being too soft on cases like political corruption. Some would argue that, in fact, he had been too tough on it, but by and large, I think that he would be remembered as a successful Attorney General, which successfully submitted accusations against Prime Minister, which even in a comparative legal perspective, it's quite a challenge, and he has done it.
I want to turn now to his potential replacements. Tell me about the big 3. We have a former DA of Tel Aviv, Galia Barav Miara, who supposedly is the favorite. I know Justice Minister Gideon Sar is pushing her forward as much as possible. She would be the first female Attorney General in Israel. Of course, then we also have Deputy Attorney General Roy Scheindorf and Defense Ministry Legal Advisor Itai Ophir. Tell me a little bit about maybe the differences between them and some of their backgrounds. And maybe if you think that that Galia is maybe the most deserving as the frontrunner.
Well, I think that all 3 of them are certainly good candidates. Interestingly enough, none of them has a very rich experience in criminal legal proceedings, which means that might be that the Minister of Justice would like to split the Attorney General office between criminal prosecution and legal advice to the government. The leading candidate, she has a lot of experience in civil law, in torts law. If she is elected, she would be the first female ever in Israel history as an Attorney General. Heretofore, Israel had 14 Attorney Generals, none of whom was a female. Okay. So it's very, in a way, it's symbolically at least very important that Israel would have an Attorney General who is a female, but also the other 2 candidates are evidently very competent. Interestingly enough, some other competent candidates have not did it to the final round.
Yeah, I know that there were other deputy attorney generals who didn't make it in, who everybody thought would.
Yeah, exactly. Like Mr. Nizri, who is a very experienced a lawyer, and also, by the way, two very experienced constitutional law professors who have not been elected to the final round. But if indeed she would be elected, it would be in a way an historical moment to Israel regarding female representation in the top office of the Israeli rule of law.
All right, so I think we're all excited, obviously, to hear what the final results will be. As we know, Attorney General Mandelblit finished his tenure yesterday, so the results will come out very soon. Until then, Professor, thank you so much for joining us.
You are very welcome. Have a nice day.
ILTV Plus, your news from Israel and more 24/7. Start your free trial today. Subscribe at iltv.tv and watch from any device.